Hey, what's up everyone? Nick here. Welcome to the start of my hardest difficulty walkthrough for the new God of War game. So here we are at the opening screen. The first thing I'm going to do, because I know you guys who follow the channel, you appreciate this, you like following along with the story, so I'll go ahead and turn the subtitles on. And now I'll introduce you to what the hardest difficulty actually is. So in God of War there are 4 difficulties, and we are going to be playing on Give Me God of War. You can read the little description right there, but essentially it's the hardest difficulty. And I'm going to tell you right now, right off the bat, it's hard, it's challenging, but it's a lot of fun. And don't you worry, I'm going to be talking about all of these things in more detail in this first initial video. But what we're going to do is we're going to start a new game. There's no initial cutscene. It's actually just going to throw you into the shoes of Kratos. And granted, you can see right here, you might think this is a cutscene because the game just looks magnificent. This is a very well done game, and you know, a couple days ago I published a preview video for this walkthrough where I kind of just introduced you to the hardest difficulty, and for those of you that follow the channel, I told you what you can expect from this series, and for those of you who maybe discovered the channel through that preview video, this is the actual start of the walkthrough. And so what I want to do first and foremost is I want to talk about the organization and the presentation for this walkthrough on my channel. So again, I'll always make the distinction for those of you who follow the channel, for those of you new to the channel, for those of you who follow the channel, or actually let me start with this. For those of you who are new to the channel, welcome. I hope you enjoy my content. I also hope that these videos help you get through the hardest difficulty on your own, because that's what I do here. I make hardest difficulty walkthroughs for video games. And typically what I do is I publish, whenever I start a new series, I publish 1 video a day at 10 o'clock Arizona time, so whatever time that is for you. And I kind of just make it a regular series. I do 1 video a day until the game is over. But when newer games come out, and of course God of War is a newer game, typically what I do is I don't stick to such a strict schedule.
Get in the boat, boy.
And so since God of War is a new game, I am going to just, what I basically will do is I will upload the videos as I finish them. So if I have kind of a tough day and I only finish 1 video, then I'll only upload 1 video. But if I have a really good day and I beat 3 different levels of this game, well then I'll publish 3 separate videos. So it's very fluid, it's very kind of loose and informal whenever I cover a new game. But another thing I typically do is I make my videos shorter. Usually I make each video around 20 to 30 minutes. I go longer if I have to. It's not like I'm afraid of making longer videos, but typically I just prefer to do about the 30-minute mark. But you'll see this video right here is, I think it comes out to like 1 hour and 7 minutes. And that's because how I've decided to organize this game is kind of how the game organizes itself. So the main missions of the game are called journeys, and I'm not sure at the moment how many journeys there actually are, but each level, each chapter is called a journey. And this right here is Journey 1. It's called The Marked Trees, as you can see right there in the corner. And for me, this might be different for you. You might be quicker, you might be slower, but for me, completing this journey took 1 hour and 7 minutes. And so basically I'm going to show the entire journey from start to finish.
Everything is different, boy. Try not to dwell on it.
Yes, sir.
So one of the best things about this game, and don't worry, I'm going to talk about the actual difficulty setting and some strategies as we get further into the level, but right now I just kind of want to introduce the walkthrough and introduce some of my thoughts on the game. Some of the best moments in this game come when you're just traveling with Kratos' son, Atreus, which is that little boy that you just saw. The 2 characters share some excellent dialogue. I mean, it's fantastic. It's funny, it's deep, it's enjoyable. It's one of the best parts about this game. You know, a lot of the times as I'm traveling while playing the game for myself, I actually look forward to hearing them, you know, just exchange a little bit of banter back and forth, because the voice acting is phenomenal, the script writing is great, the character development is amazing. This is just a fantastic game, guys, and we are going to be approaching the first cutscene of the game in a couple of seconds, so I want to say, for those of you new to the channel, another thing I like to do with my walkthroughs is I like to also include all of the story, so I am going to be including all of the cutscenes, but I don't talk over the cutscenes because I want you guys to be able to follow and enjoy the story at your own pace. So right now we are going to approach kind of a long 4 to 5 minute cutscene. You can enjoy that. It is fantastic. As I said, this game is amazing, and we will pick back up with the commentary afterwards.
There do I see my mother. Oh, there do I see my father. Oh, there do they call to me. 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 She's ready.
Find your way home. You are free.
I'm sorry.
Squeeze. This knife. It was hers. Now it is yours. She taught you to hunt.
She knew.
Show me.
Now?
Now.
What are we hunting?
You are hunting deer.
Which way?
In the direction of deer.
Okay, this way.
Alright guys, so we are now ready to officially start this game. So you can see we're still in the same journey, the marked trees. That's what we're going to be doing this entire video. But we're in a different sub-chapters. So every journey has a couple of different sub-levels. Our first mission, I mean, you saw everything that we've just done. Our next little mission is to hunt with Atreus. And you're going to notice right off the bat, I don't follow Atreus. Instead, I kind of do a little bit of navigating for my own, and that's a very important thing to do in this game because there are a lot of things lying around. There's this stuff called hack silver, which you can pick up. It's a form of currency, and it allows you to make upgrades and things like that. So you can see the menu right here. The first thing I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to equip this Guardian shield, and that's because that is the default shield that you get with the game. Those three other shields that were colored with blue, those were shields that I got for pre-ordering the game. And I think the shields are a bit stronger than the default shield, and so I wanted to make sure to set myself back to the default level so that it can be kind of a more legit walkthrough, so that I'm starting at the same place as you. And in fact, in this initial level of the game, we're actually not going to be making any upgrades, so you don't really have to worry about that. But you do want to take the time to explore. So you see right there, I just got some more hack silver.
Boy, you missed these.
Huh. Close. But also not deer. See? Tips are too wide. Mountain goat?
Your mother taught you well.
And so another thing you can get through exploration is little bits like that. So there was no collectible there. There was no, you know, hack silver, nothing like that. But it was just a brief little bit of dialogue between Kratos and Atreus. And those are some of the moments that if you're playing the game for yourself, they really serve to add to the game and add to the character development. So when I come across those moments, I'll be sure to kind of stop talking and allow you to enjoy the dialogue. But you can see right there, we just found this chest, more hack silver within. There's a collectible right there. Now for this walkthrough, as I typically do with my walkthroughs, this is not a 100% walkthrough. So I'm not going to be showing you where all of the collectibles are. I'm not going to be showing you where all of the lore is. If I happen to find a collectible, sure, I'll pick it up, and you can make a little mental note of that and pick it up yourself when you're playing the game. But I like to focus purely on the strategy, because I am playing on the hardest difficulties. I like to give you guys the best strategies, the best advice, and that's really what I shoot for. I don't shoot for showing you how to get all of the collectibles, because I myself am never a fan of getting collectibles, and I'm actually kind of bad at finding them on my own. So that's something that I actually usually use a walkthrough for myself, just to wrap up like the platinum trophy, and that's something I'll do, you know, later once I finish the actual game. So some more hack silver right here. In terms of exploring, basically what you want to do is look for Atreus. So typically when you're on any given map, there are several paths you can take. So you see right here, Atreus, he goes straight, so instead I'm going to hook a right, and of course there's some hack silver here. So what you want to do is pay attention to Atreus, and whatever way he goes, go the other way first, because you'll usually reach some type of dead end that has treasure or some form of thing that you're going to want to pick up. Now right there, that's a really very cool feature. Kratos, his weapon is called the Leviathan Axe.
Hold. What are you doing? Now his guard is up. Only fire. Only fire when I tell you to fire.
I'm sorry.
Do not be sorry. Be better. Find it.
Alright, so guys, we are now ready to approach our very first combat encounter of the game. And as I said, this is the hardest difficulty, and in my experience, I've covered a lot of games on the hardest difficulties. This one's pretty tough. It is challenging, but it is so much fun. They really nailed this difficulty. So right here, we're going to be fighting this enemy. I think it's called a Draugr. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just start off with, I'm going to do a block, which you do by doing L1. If you time those blocks correctly, you'll hit this little slow-mo counter-attack animation, and you're going to want to follow that up with the heavy attack, which is R2. And you can see, because I'm only fighting one enemy, the enemy actually gets like knocked into the air, and you can just kind of catch him in this infinite loop of heavy attacks. Now right here, two enemies drop down. And you'll notice the biggest thing I do is I focus on these heavy attacks. So what you want to do, the best form that you can do this early on in the game is focus on blocking. So press L1, try to time that block correctly so that you get that little counterattack slow-mo animation, and then follow it up with heavy attacks. Now, on the hardest difficulty here, the enemies, they take so much hits, they have so much HP, and if you just keep doing light attacks, you really don't get a lot done. It's going to take a long time. So, in my experience, what I recommend doing, again, you see right there, let them swing at you, press L1 to time the block correctly, and then follow up with a string of heavy attacks. And you'll see right there, a lot of the times when you do that, the enemy will actually fly into the air, and you can catch them in an infinite series of heavy attacks until they're destroyed. Now, the hardest part, of course, becomes, okay, well, what if one enemy is caught in the air, but there's another enemy trying to fight me, as you just saw briefly ago? And that happens a lot, because you're going to be fighting 2, 3, 4 enemies at a time, most of the time. And so the biggest piece of advice there is, whenever you are fighting multiple enemies, always try to pick a single enemy and focus on them until they are destroyed. So you see right here, I have 2 enemies that I'm currently fighting. I've already done a bit of damage on one of them, but now I've done a lot of damage on this guy. So this guy that I'm currently hitting right now, I am going to focus on him. I'll still pay attention to the other guy. I'll try to block his attacks to make sure he doesn't cause any more damage on me. But I'm going to focus my combat on the enemy that has the most damage at any given point. And the reason for that, so you see here, there's 3 enemies. The enemy on the left, he's taken the most damage so far. But of course, right there, this is exactly why you want to focus on him. Because on the hardest difficulty, even from this point, even at the beginning of the game, in the first combat encounter, the enemies can heal themselves. They have the ability to heal themselves. Whenever you see an enemy stop and this blue magical cloud kind of surrounds them, that means that they're healing themselves, and everything that you've done, all the damage that you've dealt them, it was for nothing. It's gone away. And they heal themselves. There's no limit to how much they can heal themselves. If you leave them alone for too long, they will heal themselves. And so right there, as I was fighting those 3 guys, I hope you noticed that I was trying to focus on one individually. I was trying to just focus all of my efforts on one enemy so that I could keep causing that enemy damage until, of course, that enemy was destroyed, and then you're left with 2 enemies. Because the problem is, one enemy really isn't that much to deal with, but any more than 1 enemy, 2 enemies, 3 enemies, 4 enemies, it gets tough, and it gets tough fast. And the problem that you'll fall in is, you'll kind of, you know, and this is kind of the logical thing to do, you'll be tempted to kind of evenly distribute your damage. So you'll focus on one enemy, he'll fall down, then you'll turn to the other enemy and start attacking them, and you might try to whittle away at each enemy and kind of evenly distribute those attacks so that all 3 of them die at about the same time. But you can't do that on this difficulty, because as soon as you neglect one enemy that you've caused damage, he's going to heal himself, and then you're going to be fighting the other enemy, and then you're back to square one, and then that enemy takes damage, you leave him alone, and then he heals himself, and you just get caught in this infinite loop of not getting anything done. So it's tough, guys. It is tough, and it takes a lot of getting used to. Now, right here, a brief note on the exploration. Again, Atreus, he went on the left path, so what we're going to do is we're going to go on the straight path. And you can see this chest here with 3 Nordic symbols on it. And what you have to do whenever you find a chest like this is you have to find those 3 symbols somewhere out and about. So you can see this one is really easy because this is the first one in the game. All 3 symbols are in this room here. You break each one, and that unlocks the magical seal. And within these types of chests, you're going to get one of 2 items. Right here, you see that I get this apple. And if you can find 3 of these apples, it will heal your maximum health. Whereas the other one, I don't remember what it's called, but if you find 3 of the other item, it will increase Kratos' maximum rage counter, which is something that you're not going to see. You're not going to see what rage is until the end of this level. But here, once again, so instead of taking the left path that Atreus went down, we're going to go this way.
I can see more tracks.
And of course, we're just looking for other things. There's a chest. There's going to be some hack silver most likely within. And the reason it really pays to explore is because you're going to want to get all the resources as possible. as you probably noticed from that first combat encounter, the game is difficult enough as is, and as the game progresses, you're going to be able to make a lot of upgrades to Kratos' armor, to his weapons, to his skills, and to also Atreus' weapons and skills. And so it's worth it to look for these extra resources, and that's something that I'm definitely going to be doing a lot of in this walkthrough. But of course, at the same time, don't be worried. This is something I take very seriously on the channel. The word walkthrough gets misused a lot in videos today, and a lot of people, they mistake Let's Plays for walkthroughs, and so they'll just be wandering around this map for 30 minutes not knowing what to do, and they'll call that a walkthrough. This is not a walkthrough. You'll notice that in this video, I get straight to the point. I go from Objective A to Objective B, and I get what needs to be done. Now, of course, I am going to do a little bit of exploration, but that's it. I'm not gonna make it a big deal. I'm not gonna stop and smell the roses. It's legitimately exactly what you're going to need to do to get through this game. Nothing more, nothing less. Now, we're gonna come through this door here, and we are going to approach our second combat encounter. I think it's right here. And whereas the last one...
Can I have my bow back now?
Can you hit it from here?
We should get closer.
So whereas the first encounter consisted of a couple waves of enemies, so there was one enemy, then two enemies, and then I think two again, and then three. This fight here is a bit different. This fight is just going to have 4 enemies right off the bat. So right away, this is more enemies than we've ever dealt with at a time. 4 enemies at a time. It gets pretty tough. Now, one tip that you're going to see me do is, as you saw, Kratos can throw his Leviathan axe, and he can recall it back to him immediately. So what I'm going to do as soon as I turn this corner is I'm actually going to, what you can do is you can place your throws, and I'm going to throw the Leviathan axe at this guy's legs to knock him down. So there you go, boom. He's out of the picture momentarily. I do it to his buddy as well. And that's already 2 enemies that are down, at least for a couple seconds, and every little bit helps. Now right there, you see one enemy came to attack me, so I follow, or I start with the shield timing, get that counterattack slow-mo animation, and then follow it up with a string of heavies. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to spam the heavy attacks because, of course, I got flanked by a different enemy. And so now here we go, right back to work. Focus on the timing of that counter ability, of that blocking maneuver. It's very odd because when I played through the game on normal difficulty, I hardly ever used the blocking feature. I just didn't think it was worth it because the enemies aren't as strong on normal difficulty, and I didn't really need to block their attacks. I could just keep rolling out of the way and follow, and then, you know, doing heavy attacks or Leviathan throws or anything like that. But the thing is, on this game, your attacks, they just do so little damage that you really have to take advantage, especially this early on, with the heavy attacks. And so that's why you'll notice that's basically what I focus on doing. I hardly ever do light attacks unless I'm able to, like right there, if I roll around an enemy and then their back is to me, maybe I'll do a light attack or two, but really you'll notice I'm just focusing on those heavy attacks. So block, heavy, block, heavy. And of course it's harder when there's more enemies because you can't follow up with those large strings of heavy attacks. And the other thing that becomes increasingly difficult as the number of enemies increases is it becomes hard to focus on one enemy. It really is, because you can get overwhelmed very quickly. But one thing that you'll notice I'm doing is I'm always moving. You never want to stand in one spot. You never want to plant your feet firmly to the ground and stand your ground for that combat encounter. You always want to be moving. You want to move back, create some distance between you and the enemies. I do a lot of rolling to the side, so you see right there. It takes patience. You don't want to just try to block every attack. You do want to roll out of the way for some of them, you know, get the enemies back to you, things like that. Now here you go, as soon as 3 of the enemies are killed, 2 more are going to spawn. So I think this is going to be the last part of the fight. We just have these 2 guys to take care of. And I think one of the biggest strategies that's going to help you is, and I know this is going to sound odd, and it's going to sound kind of funny given the fact that we're playing as Kratos, who is perhaps the most badass video game character ever created. But one of the things for me that made me the most successful so far in this game is to just not be overly aggressive. You know, when you're playing on lower difficulties, in a lot of ways this just kind of becomes a hack and slash game. You can just you can just hack and slash, button mash away, and get through combat encounters pretty simply. You just can't do that here. You really don't want to be overly aggressive. You just want to be patient. You know, so for example, right here, I blocked this guy's attack, and I hit him with 2 heavy attacks. Now, because he didn't get thrown up into the air, because I wasn't able to catch him in an infinite series of heavy attacks, you know, I didn't string 6 attacks together. I just did 2, and I only did 2. I didn't try to get aggressive. I didn't sneak a 3rd attack in there. I only did 2, and then I just got out of there. I rolled back, created some distance in between me and the enemy, and that's it. Now, after you kill those 2 guys, here comes one last guy, and as we've seen, one enemy really isn't much to deal with, so I'm going to block that attack, and then 2 heavy attacks, roll out of the way, and get the job done. But again, you'll just see how I'm just not being overly aggressive. I'll dive in, get a couple swings in there, get back, maybe throw the Leviathan axe once or twice. It's always about creating distance between you and the enemy, but not so much distance to the point where you're going to allow them to heal themselves. So it's very interesting. It's a very, very interesting dynamic between just being aggressive but not overly aggressive. It's a hard difficulty, but it's not an impossible difficulty. Like right there, I'm actually very proud of that fight. You'll notice I did the whole thing without taking any damage. But that was not on my first try. You know, in this entire video, out of all the combat encounters that you're going to see, I did not do a single one on my first try. That particular fight that you just watched, it took me about 4 or 5 tries to get through it. And so while, you know, you might watch this video and it might look very easy and you'll say, oh wow, this is going to be a piece of cake, it all just comes with practice. And so far, I would say that the biggest strategy, and hear me out because this is going to sound funny, but the biggest strategy so far is, honestly, you just got to get good. There's not much else to it. You just have to get good, and I mean that. And I'm not saying like, oh, I'm just naturally good. I didn't have to get good. No, you bet your ass I had to get good. When I started playing this game, I am not a follower of the God of War franchise. I've really never played much of the God of War games before. This was completely new to me. I also don't typically play a lot of these types of games. Typically, I play shooters where I'm using a gun and I'm always able to have a lot of distance between me and the enemy. So when I started this game, it was all new to me, and that's why I started the game on normal, and I played through it, and I took the time to practice and really learn these combat mechanics in and out. And even yet, that still wasn't enough. When I played through on normal, I got pretty good with the combat, and I thought, oh, okay, I'm ready. I can take on the hardest difficulty. But even then, like I said, it still wasn't enough. Once I started the hardest difficulty, I still found myself dying a lot, even, you know, just in this initial level of the game. In the very first combat encounter, I died probably 6 times. Even though I felt like I had the skills that I needed to do it successfully, it's still challenging, guys, and it just takes practice. You really have to get familiar with the mechanics. This is not a difficulty, in my opinion, this is not a difficulty that you can just jump into blindly and be successful. Now, maybe those of you who are very good at these types of games, maybe those of you who have been playing God of War games for a long time, maybe you can do that, but most of us can't, myself included. And you know, I like to think of myself as a pretty skilled gamer, and you know, I can't do it. I could not just jump into this difficulty unless I was fully prepared with the combat and fully ready to endure everything that this challenge has to offer.
Relax.
Now right here, you're going to do a little interactive thing with Atreus. You're going to hold L2, aim at the deer, and then once you see this red indicator, that's when you're kind of free to fire your shot. And there you go.
Good.
So now what you're going to do, guys, is approach the fallen deer, and that's actually going to throw us into a cutscene. But get ready, because after that cutscene, we are going to be thrown into our first boss fight of the game. And believe it or not, this first level has 2 different boss fights.
Your knife. No. Finish what you started.
I can't.
Alright guys, here we go. Atreus is right. We are going to fight this thing. So this is, I mean, you could see his name up in the corner. Kind of a hard to pronounce Nordic name. I'm just going to call him the Giant because it's way easier. Now you saw right there a cut in the video. That's because, of course, I did die a couple times. Or I think I died twice on this. So this fight here actually isn't as challenging as the standard combat encounters that we've done so far. Now that's a terrible way to start off. You'll notice he hit me with his giant pillar. I took quite a bit of damage. I took about half of my total damage. But that's okay. You're going to see here that the fight itself really isn't too difficult, and that's because we're introduced to a new feature. So what you can do is you can hold L2, the same little mechanic that you would do to throw the Leviathan axe, but instead of throwing the axe, you press the square button, and Atreus will shoot his arrows at whatever target you're telling him to shoot at. And you can see in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, that's his arrow count. So he has 3 arrows. He can shoot all 3 of them, and then it takes about, like, literally just 5 seconds for that stock to replenish, and then he can shoot 3 once more. Now, on lower difficulties, those arrows, they actually do quite a bit of damage on any enemy. You can have Atreus just continuously shoot those arrows, and it really is a useful feature. Unfortunately, we're playing on the hardest difficulty where our attacks don't do a lot, and so his arrows here, they don't really serve as much as a damage counter. Instead, they serve more as a distraction, which allows us to sneak up behind the giant and hit him in the legs to cause a little bit of damage a little bit at a time. So you're going to see this boss fight, it's just very scrappy. You're basically going to take it slowly and just chip your way away at this guy's health, and you can see he does have quite a bit of health. Now again, the same principles from earlier carry over. You don't want to be overly aggressive, so you'll notice what I'm doing is I get Atreus to shoot his arrows at the giant. The giant will turn his back to me and focus on Atreus. He'll start swinging his pillar around, and once he gets tired, he'll very briefly, like, set his pillar on the ground, and when he does that, that's when I run up and hit him a couple times in the legs. And I don't usually do more than 3 attacks. I'll hit him 3 times, I'll do light attacks because they're quicker, and then I'll get away. I'll just run back because he'll start swinging that pillar around, and he's very quick, and chances are he'll be able to hit you. So that's where, again, you don't want to be overly aggressive. So right there, he slams his pillar down, trying to hit Atreus. I run in, I just get 2 quick shots on the legs, and now I'm going to run back. Now another thing you can do is you'll notice how every once in a while I throw my Leviathan axe at the giant. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to aim for the head, because if you hit him in the right place, like right on the square of the forehead, it will stun him. He'll stumble backwards a little bit, and it will cause him a little bit of damage. Now, this is one of the main differences between this difficulty and the hardest difficulty, or sorry, this difficulty and an easier difficulty. On lower difficulties, you can actually just basically infinitely throw the Leviathan axe at him, and it causes him quite a bit of damage, and you can literally just stand back and just keep spamming the axe throw, and it takes him out pretty quickly. But on this difficulty, when you throw your axe at him, it really doesn't cause much damage. I don't even think it does anything unless you hit him in the forehead. That's the only place where it will actually stun him. Now, I will say, you can see these orange marks. You can see one on his left leg and another one on his right shoulder, these bright orange glowing marks. Now, when I was playing on lower difficulties, it seemed like if I hit those spots, those were like his weak spots, like it would cause him more damage. But here, it just didn't seem to work. Like, on my first attempt at fighting this guy, I was specifically aiming for those spots, and it just didn't seem to do anything. It didn't seem like it made a difference. So, you know, if you find out that those spots are weak points, feel free to share that information in the comments below. Maybe it will make the fight easier for you. But in all honesty, guys, this fight here, even though the enemy is bigger, this fight is a lot easier than the two standard combat fights that we've had so far. Because this guy is bigger, he's a bigger target, he's slower, and there's only one of him. And so really, it's just a matter of keeping your distance, don't get overly aggressive, and eventually you'll get through it. I think all in all, this fight ends up taking me like 7 to 8 minutes. I mean, you can see I've already done quite a bit. He's already at less than 50% health. And aside from getting hit at the very beginning, I really haven't taken much damage since. So it's definitely easier. Now right here again, he's going to swing at Atreus. I'm going to run in, get 3 shots in on the legs, and that's all you need to do. There you go, hit him in the forehead, stun him, cause a little bit of damage. Ooh, twice in a row, that was nice. That's kind of hard to do because there's very little room for error on that throw. You have a very small target. A lot of the times you'll see he has these 4 tusks coming from each side of his mouth, 2 on each side, and if you hit those tusks, it doesn't do anything. And so it's a very small target to hit. But again, the biggest thing you want to do is just utilize Atreus. Have him keep shooting arrows at the giant. Wait until the giant turns around. So you can see here, now that the giant has less health, he's starting to learn my tricks. He's starting to turn his back to me less and less, and that also is a feature of the hardest difficulty. So not only are the enemies greater in number, not only are the enemies stronger, the enemies are smarter. They flank you, they utilize better strategies, and as you can see, even with this guy here, it seems like he's turning his back to me less and less, and so that does make things harder. And as you saw right there, that was a terrible throw. As you saw just momentarily, or just briefly ago, I got a little bit too aggressive. I tried to attack him where I shouldn't have, and as a result, I paid the price and he was able to hit me. So I need to follow my own advice, and if you're having trouble, maybe you will try following my advice as well. So again, try to get a couple throws in there just to buy ourselves some time. Here he comes. He's going to start approaching me, so I'm going to tell Atreus to start shooting at him. Okay, so again, just kind of stay back. There he goes. He turns his back to me. He's going to do this side swipe thing, and I like to wait until he's done with that. So watch here. He's swiping it side to side. Right here, he's going to set it down just briefly, and right when he sets it down, that's when I'm going to run up and get about 2 to 3 hits in on the legs. And again, I'm not going to, whereas I was using a lot of heavy attacks against the standard enemies, against this guy I'm going to focus on using light attacks because they're faster. And you don't want to be too close to him for too long. You just want to get in, get out, get in, get out. Now right there you saw he set his pillar down. I could have gotten aggressive. I could have run up and hit him in the legs a couple times, but I didn't have a good angle, and so that's exactly what I mean. Had I been overly aggressive, I would have ran in and tried to hurt him. Chances are, because of the angle I would have had to take, he would have been able to hurt me, possibly kill me. So that's why I just stood back, I was patient, and now here you go. I hit him with a Leviathan throw. You're going to see this red indicator, and now you're going to finish the fight.
Boy.
Think I'm afraid of you! You're nothing to me!
Boy, look at me! Look at me, boy! Boy, look at me.
We did it.
You are not ready.
What? Are you serious? I found the deer. I proved myself. How am I not ready?
We are going home.
I haven't been sick in a long time. I can do this.
You are not ready.
Alright guys, so that was our first boss fight completed. Every boss will drop a lot of goodies, so make sure you pick that up. The green things, those are health. You smash those to get health back, but then you'll also see I got a fair amount of hack silver. Later on, you're going to get even better things, these things called runics that you can use. Don't worry about that now. Just, you know, pick up anything you see, pick up anything that the enemy drops, and now we're going to continue on our way. So our next job here is we're actually going to return home, but as you can imagine, easier said than done. It's not just a walk through the woods. We are going to have one more combat encounter, and we're also going to be introduced to a new type of enemy. So right here, you saw a cut in the video again. Every time you see a cut in the video, that's because I died during a fight, and then I just cut out all of that, and then I cut it at the checkpoints. So right here, you're going to come into this clearing, and there's going to be two enemies to begin with. So there's this guy here. Or sorry, one enemy to begin with. So when there's one enemy, you're just going to either throw your Leviathan Axe to knock him down, or wait until he attacks you with a shield. And then you're going to follow with a string of heavy attacks. Now right here, I was able to get the guy in the air, so now I'm going to just follow up with a string of heavy hits. But there you see, this guy, he tried to flank me. So I block his attack, and now I finish off the guy that I caused the most damage. That's the key strategy, is focus on one enemy at a time. And now I'm free to kind of kill his buddy here. Now, one of the things I want to mention is, say you're fighting an enemy, and say another enemy is approaching you from the right. You would think that all you would have to do is press L1 to block the attack at the right time, and Kratos will automatically kind of turn and block that incoming attack. But that doesn't happen. If you are standing in a particular way, and if an enemy is approaching you and they come up and try to attack you, you can press L1, and Kratos will take out his shield, but if you're not facing the direction of the incoming attack, you won't actually block it. So basically what that means is even if you press the block button, Kratos won't automatically block the attack unless you're facing the direction of the attack. It's very realistic in that regard. And so you got to be careful with that, because you might think you're going to block an attack, but you end up not blocking it. And as you can see on the hardest difficulty here, it really only takes about 3 or 4 hits to put you down for good. So you got to be careful. And the shame about that, the thing that makes this so challenging is, I mean, watch right here. So far, I've done all of this without taking any damage. I've literally done this perfectly. And again, that's not because of any... Well, it's because of practice. You know, I died about 3 or 4 times doing this fight, so I really started to learn the best way to navigate this map, the best way to focus on each enemy at a time. So it all just comes with practice. Again, you just got to practice, and eventually you will get better. I promise you that. It is tough, but you will get better with enough practice, with enough repetition. But you see right there, I've done everything perfectly, and then right there I make one little mistake. I missed one block, and half of my health is gone. So it's a very unforgiving difficulty. You could do a whole fight perfectly, and then the very last enemy could just get lucky, and you could accidentally miss a block, and you're ruined, and then you got to start the whole thing over. So it's very challenging. It's very unforgiving. Now right here comes a new type of enemy. You're going to see this guy. He looks like he's made of ice. When you see this particular type of enemy, the Leviathan Axe really doesn't do a lot against him. So I'm actually going to unequip the Leviathan Axe. You can do that by pressing right on the directional pad. So here we go. I'm going to put away the Leviathan Axe. Well, first I'm going to come over here and get some health. I'm going to put away the Leviathan Axe, and I'm going to fight this guy with my bare fists, because that's actually the best way to take on this encounter. But you can still use the shield, and it's encouraged to do so. So again, let him strike at you, block his attack, time it correctly, and then try to get in there and do a heavy attack. Now you saw right there he tried to heal himself, but stupid of him, he tried to heal himself too closely to me, and I was able to stop it with a heavy attack. So always pay attention. Even if an enemy begins healing themselves, you can stop it by getting in there and hitting them, as you saw me do right there. But of course it's harder to do when there are multiple enemies over just one enemy. And as you saw right there, I was able to build up what the game called this stun meter, and if you hit an enemy with your fists or with arrows enough times, their stun meter will go up full, and you can do that little, it tells you to click the right joystick, and if you do that, it does that cool little death animation, like an instant kill. That's a very useful feature, because it does basically amount to an instant kill. But anyway, guys, we're back home. You would think that the end of the level was here. This certainly seems like the logical place to end the level. But alas, we still have another boss fight to go. So go ahead and go inside the house. That's going to trigger kind of a long cutscene, actually. And then we're going to be thrown into the second boss fight of the level and the last combat encounter.
Inside, boy. You lost control.
That thing was trying to kill us. It's not like you don't get angry in a fight.
Anger can be a weapon. If you control it, use it. You clearly cannot. When you...
I haven't been sick in a long time. I'm better now.
Fine. Come on, then.
You want me to hit you?
I want you to try.
Ow! What are you...
Try again.
Why are you doing that?
Too slow. Try again.
Cut it out!
Weak. Again. Again.
Stop it!
Again! Your anger. You can get lost in it. The path ahead is difficult. And you, Atreus, are clearly not ready.
What was that?
Quiet.
Come on out! There's no use hiding anymore. I know who you are.
What's going on? Do you know him?
More importantly, I know what you are.
Boy, beneath the floor. Now!
But you told me never to go down there. Who is that?
I do not know.
What's he talking about?
I do not know. Get in.
Just tell me what I want to know. No need for this to get bloody. I thought you'd be bigger. But you're definitely the one. Long way from home, aren't you?
What do you want?
Oh, you already know the answer to that.
Whatever it is you seek, I do not have it. You should move on.
And here I thought your kind was supposed to be so enlightened, so much better than us, so much smarter. And yet you hide out here in the woods, like a coward.
You do not want this fight.
Oh, I'm pretty sure I do.
Leave my I warned you.
Finally.
You would not listen.
Fine. My turn. How incredibly disappointing.
Okay guys, here we go. This is the second boss fight. Now another thing I do on my channel is I don't reveal spoilers for the game. So I know the name of this enemy, but for the sake of keeping the game spoiler free so that you can enjoy the story for yourself, I'm going to just call him the Stranger because that's all we know him as right now. So I'm going to refer to this boss fight as the Stranger. And this boss fight, again, it's actually not too difficult once you learn his moves. I only died once doing this fight, whereas with the other fights in the level, I died like 4 or 5 times. This one I only died once. It's really just a matter of learning his moves. And the biggest thing with him, so far in the game, you'll notice that I've really put an emphasis on timing your blocks so that you get that little slow motion animation. Forget about that here. Don't try to time this guy's blocks. Just block. As long as you have your shield out, he can't hurt you when he attacks you. So don't worry about doing that perfect time. You don't need it. All you have to do is block his attack. Now right there, I did get a perfect time. And that's okay. I'm certainly not going to, I'm certainly not going to avoid timing it perfectly, but it's not necessary. As long as you have your shield out, you won't get hit by him. And that's kind of the main thing you want to focus on. So anyway, this boss fight, there are 3 different stages to it. Right now we are in the first stage. His attacks are the simplest here. So basically what he'll do, again, you always want to put a lot of distance in between you and him. So what he'll do is he'll charge at you. The first time he charges at you, he'll turn blue and he'll charge halfway across the map. And what you're going to want to do when you see him do that is you're just going to want to back up. Just take a couple steps back. So right here, he comes at me, I take a couple steps back, no problem. He then follows that up with another lunge forward, and it's that second lunge forward where you want to take out your shield, block it. Doesn't matter if you block it perfectly or not, just block it, and then hit him with a heavy attack. The heavy attack will stun him. It will put him in the air, and then you can follow up with a string of light attacks that will...
Why are there 2 beds in
The string of light attacks will kind of hit him, and then eventually he'll kind of fly forward, and that will cause a lot of damage. And then right here, you just kind of get the wail on this poor guy. Just spam the R1 button. You don't have to worry about countering or anything. Alright, so now you are actually going to have to press a button here. So you're going to press R1 to hit this guy with a tree, because that's a standard weapon to use. And now we're going to transition to the second part of the fight. And as you can imagine...
Low and old, you should never have come to Midgard. So, care to try again?
You talk too much.
So that's why this boss fight has 3 different stages, because as you saw right there, this guy, this skinny guy, he apparently can heal himself. And as you can imagine, each subsequent stage gets harder and harder. His moves get tougher and tougher. But at the end of the day, as long as you learn them, they're not hard to get around. It's just a matter of learning them. So it wouldn't be uncommon to maybe die during your first time. Just because you have to take the time to actually learn the moves. Now right here, you'll see Kratos, the screen kind of goes, it has this dim red hint to it, and you'll see that Kratos, his forearms are on fire. That means that we are now in rage mode, and during rage mode, you're more or less invincible. So what you're going to do is you're just going to run up to this guy, and you're going to just start spamming that R1 button. You could do heavy attacks if you want, but I'm just going to focus on light attacks. I'm going to try to get as many in here as possible. And you're really going to want to take advantage of this moment because you can see in the lower left-hand corner of the screen, under my green health bar, there is now a new meter, and that is your rage meter. And for the first part, the game is actually just going to give you some free rage, so you'll notice that meter's not even going down. I'm just wailing into this guy. I'm just hitting him as much as I can. But sure enough, once you get him to about 60% health, your rage meter will begin falling until it runs out. And I don't think we're gonna get any more rage back until the end of the fight here. So try to get in as much damage as you possibly can. Now anyway, you're gonna see right here, I take a lot of damage during this second stage of the fight. In fact, he almost kills me. He gets me down to a sliver of health. And again, that's because you just have to take the time to learn his attacks. This was my first time doing this part of the fight, and I actually didn't die during this part. I didn't die during this part or the third part. And so the reason I'm taking more damage than usual is because I was learning his attacks, and that's always the hardest part. So if you have to die just to take the time to learn his attacks, that's okay, because then you'll just spawn back and you can use your new knowledge to get through the fight. But again, guys, the same strategies carry over. You're just going to want to keep a lot of distance between you and him. Don't get overly aggressive. And now we're going to be introduced to some of his new attacks. So you can see right there, because I blocked him perfectly, the perfect timing, I hit him with a heavy attack, he goes up into the air, I follow with some light attacks, and that causes him a bit of damage. Now right here, watch what he does. He's going to do the same swipe forward. So he lunges at you once, back up, then when he lunges at you the second time, pull out the shield, block him, and then follow up with the attack as you saw me do right there. Now whenever he does that attack, that's where he kind of slashes back and forth very quickly. Just pull out your shield. Pull out your shield immediately. Don't try to time that one perfectly. Don't try to get fancy. Just take out the shield and block it. Plain and simple. You're probably not going to cause him any damage on that. That's okay. You want to just conserve health. So anytime he does that side-swiping lunge forward that's very fast, just don't even try to block it. Just don't even try. Just pull, sorry, don't try to block it perfectly. Just pull out the shield, block it plainly. That's okay. You don't have to do a perfect block every time. Alright, so now Kratos, he's going to pull a Chris Redfield and just start punching this giant rock. And there you go, guys. The boss fight is now over. Or is it? Because wait a second, I said that there were 3 stages, and it most certainly seemed like that was only 2. So you guessed it, as you begin to walk back home, very weary, very tired, this bloke is going to get back up. He is definitely more than he appears to be. It's kind of funny because when I played this game the first time, I saw this little skinny guy at my front door, and I thought, oh man, this guy does not know who he's picking a fight with. This is going to be the easiest fight of my life. And sure enough, it's a boss fight, and it's a challenging boss fight at that.
Throw whatever you have at me. I'll keep coming. That old body will give out. But before I end this, I want you to know one thing. I can't feel any of this.
So guys, if you know anything about Norse mythology, which I really don't know a lot, and I'm not going to pretend to know a lot, but if you know anything about Norse mythology, maybe you've already figured out who this guy is. And don't worry, we will learn later on who it actually is, but as I said, I avoid spoilers on this channel, so right now, Kratos doesn't know who he is. That's why you see him referred to as the Stranger, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm just going to call him the Stranger and always avoid spoilers so that you guys can enjoy the story for yourselves, especially if you're not playing along with this game. And that does seem to be a fair share of my audience, people who don't play the games for themselves, and that's why they really enjoy the fact that I put in those cutscenes and leave out spoilers and things like that. So I hope you guys like that. You know, as always, let me know what you think of this video in the comments down below. I really hope this walkthrough helps a lot of people, but I also hope it's entertaining to watch, and so I'd love to hear your guys' feedback. Alright, so here we are. We are now in the 3rd encounter, Now he's going to do this new move right here where he actually jumps into the sky and then he'll land wherever you were standing when he took off. So that's an attack that we're actually going to be able to hurt him with, as you'll see in a few moments. But other than that, some of the more basic moves he does will still apply. So right there you see he jumps up into the sky, I run away, I get out of the way. Now right there I block his attack. I tried to swing at him, but he'll back up. He's also very quick, so be careful. Now right there, notice, again, I got overly aggressive. I rushed him, I tried to sneak in some damage, and as a result, I took some damage myself. So when I say don't be overly aggressive, I really mean it. I think that's probably the biggest key to success, at least this early on in the game, before we're able to have any upgrades or stronger weapons or anything like that. Now right here, he jumps into the sky, he comes back down. And it's at this moment here where I began to see kind of the pattern and figure out how I can take out this guy pretty easily. So right there, he does his ice attack. I get out of the way, he jumps up, I run away, and I still haven't quite yet figured it out. But what you're going to see is when he does that, when he lands back down, you can actually charge him and get in a few attacks pretty easily. Now right there, he does his very fast diagonal approach towards me. I pull out the shield, I block it, and then I follow up with a heavy hit, and then string that with a bunch of light attacks, and that will cause him a fair amount of damage. Alright, so here we go. There's about 2 or 3 more minutes left in this fight. So watch what I do here. He lands. Nope, I still haven't figured it out. Gosh, keep in mind, I didn't die during this encounter, so what you're seeing me do here, this is actually pure gameplay. This is me just kind of adapting and learning the ropes as I go. So sometimes that will happen. Sometimes I'll get through a fight without actually dying. But right there, that's where I finally figured it out. So he'll jump into the sky. When he lands, you're going to run towards him, and you can actually hit him a couple times before he's able to kind of regain his bearings. Now right there, that's the diagonal approach. Block it, and then follow up with a heavy, string it with some lights, and there you go. Now right there, he jumps in the sky, he lands back down, and I immediately run up to him and hit him a couple times with the light attack. Alright, so here we go. That's his original lunge forward. He'll lunge at you once, you take a step back, then when he lunges at you a second time, you block it, and then heavy hit him. There you go, that's the diagonal approach. Now sometimes it doesn't work, sometimes he'll back up, but sometimes he won't, and that's when you're able to get in that attack. And from here, guys, it's basically just rinse and repeat. Like I said, the biggest actual challenge of this fight is learning his attacks, and the thing that makes it tough is every stage he will come up with a couple different moves. So, to kind of recap, in the first stage of the fight, he only did the lunge forward, the double lunge forward. That's a very easy one to block. And then he did the thing where he'll kind of like shoot a streak of ice in your direction, and you just have to roll out of the way. Very simple to do. In the second part of the fight, he added a new lunge forward. He does kind of the very fast diagonal lunge forward. When he does that, you don't have to worry about timing the block perfectly. Just pull out the shield and block it, plain and simple. And then in this third part of the fight here, he has his new ability where he actually jumps up into the sky and crashes back down, and that's another very easy one to get it. You don't even have to block him, you just have to run out of the way, turn around, run back at him when he lands, and then hit him a couple times, and then get out of there and put some distance in between you and the stranger. Alright, so right here, we have him in a chokehold.
That you, of everyone I faced, would finally make me feel something, but you can't.
And now you're going to be prompted to click both joysticks at the same time, and that will kind of give you your finishing move. And there you go, guys. That is the end of the Stranger boss fight. So Kratos, clearly exhausted, he's going to eventually get back up, and you're going to walk very slowly back to the cabin. We're going to see kind of a long cutscene. This cutscene is about 4 minutes long, and that's the end of the level, guys. That's the end of the first journey of the game. Let me know what you think. This game is just fantastic. I can only say positive things about this game. I only wish there was a trophy involved for beating the hardest difficulty.
Who was he? He knew me. Did he What do I do? Our son is not ready to carry your ashes to the top of the mountain. And neither am I. I do not know how to do this without you. But we cannot stay here. Boy.
There was so much. I thought. You're all right.
I am all right. Come. Gather your things. We are leaving.
Thought I wasn't ready.
You are not. We have no choice now. Prove me wrong.
Yes, sir.
And there we go, guys. That is the end of the first journey of the game. We have now completed the marked trees. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it helped you get through it yourself. As always, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Feel free to like and subscribe if you get the chance. This is an amazing game, guys. I love it. I love everything about it. I'm really looking forward to this series, and I hope you are too. I will see you in the next journey.